All these waters are far more than just carp waters. You know, there is a history to them. You're in touch with something more remote.
I feel really fortunate to have grown up carp fishing in the early 90s when everything was still really mysterious. The mangrove in particular had this mystique, this sort of allure. God, that sky is incredible. The location was never really revealed, and the fish were huge as well for the north back then. The whole point of coming here was to come to the mangrove, just to basically relive some childhood dreams, sit in some of the same swims that I'd looked at photos of 100 times, see a couple of mangrove sunrises and sunsets, and hopefully catch one, which I did manage to do. Cleans the whistle, that smells lovely. Sat perfect, doesn't it? Still know they were nice and presentable. Still lovely and sharp. Yeah, given all my concern yesterday about the lake bed, how silty it was, how much crap it felt like there was out there, come in absolutely perfect. You can see it's been sat absolutely sweet, that. Lead's not tainted, bait still smells perfect, hook's still pin sharp, well presented. That sort of bait out there as well with the naturals and stuff. If there was any carp out there, I'm 100% sure I'd have caught them. So yeah, move's got to be a good shout, I reckon. Weather looks good for it as well now. Turned a little bit northwesterly, kicking up. Get off around there and go again. I love a little gently flattened bait. Yeah, lovely these as well. They're soft and pasty enough to still hold their shape and not just break. So you still get a decent sized food item, but just with broken skin, quicker breakdown, a flatter profile just to settle down a bit softer on the silt as well. Yeah, kind of feel like clutching at straws a little bit. If I was seeing them and we could kind of definitely get on them, I think I'd be happy just sort of fishing for a bite, you know, absolutely certain that was on fish, but given that they could be anywhere out there, it's a big old expanse of water out in front of us. Really, I want to get a bit of bait out there. The bream are obviously active, like they're going to be in and clearing up bait and that as well, so I'm actually just going to go a little bit shit or bust really. Give them a fair bit of bait, a few kilos of boilie. Just going to pep it all up with a couple of kettles full of hot lake water, just kind of speed up the washing out process a little bit. Load of GLM powder over the top as well. The amount of mussels in here, that can only be a good thing. And yeah, I reckon probably just sit on it for a couple of days, which, like I say, it's not really my style of fishing, but I think given what I've seen so far and what it looks like we've got out in front of us, I feel like that might be the best shot. But yeah, famous last words, eh? Every little bit of lake bed that I've cast on so far feels exactly the same. Even though I'd always wanted to fish lightning tree, I think just the name itself is really evocative. I didn't feel that confident in there for some reason. Not really sure why, no real reason. But having moved across to the field, it did look really, really good. That northerly, northwesterly, to be honest, was really quite chilly. The lads that have been fishing on the end of it hadn't caught for a good few nights. And yeah, sitting over in the field, it just felt great. You know, the wind line, I think, was kind of roughly where the one that I'd seen that morning had shown. It just felt really good, I think, for getting some rods out in the open water over a bit of bait. Just felt like a classic way to fish for them in the autumn as well. Yeah, it is. A foot and a half, maybe 2 foot deeper actually. Just smack bang in the middle of the V. funny enough, where that little linky flat spot had come up as well. So I'm going to take that. I think one of my first casts had gone out just sort of ever so slightly left of this particular V in the tree line. And the float had come up at sort of just over 5 foot, like 5.5 foot, I think it was. Clipped it, wound it in, put it back out slightly further to the right, and got a depth reading of 7 foot. So only perhaps a rod length to the right. So immediately, you know, there was definitely something out there that just seemed a little bit more interesting. So didn't really overthink it any more than that, to be honest. So popped the float up and slid a couple of rigs down either side of it. Really nice actually, cast into a marker float. I haven't done any of that sort of fishing for years. You know, that's exactly how I used to fish on Reedsmere back in the 90s, fishing to a float out in the open water. But more often than not these days, like everything's just done with a lead and clips for me. So it was really nice actually, just fishing to a float, having that visual marker. One left, one right. Silty lakes like this always scream to me a boilie approach. So that was going to be the mainstay of what I was going to put out there. But also I just kind of felt like I wanted to do something a little bit different perhaps as well to what maybe most lads might do on here. Obviously I have no idea actually how lads fish on here, but I've done really well in the last few years where it's viable using the naturals, castor and the worm in particular. And yeah, I brought some with me. I knew really that it would be asking for trouble. Obviously there's a lot of bream in here and I knew that they would be straight on it. But obviously just fishing open water, fishing to a clip, you know, it's easy to get your rods back out, so no drama at all. And I also felt that with the lack of activity, potentially getting, you know, a shoal of bream feeding out there, you know, wouldn't be a bad thing in terms of potentially attracting some carp as well and getting them involved in the mix.
When I first went there was a timelessness to the experience that really captured me. It was another dimension, that's all I can say. And 40 years on, I reread what I wrote then, and I can still feel it, and it affected my life. It was a very short season on the Mangrove to start with because of duck shooting. So it was only open from the 16th of June to the end of August. And during that time I'd got to work 12-hour shifts for like 4 weeks or 6 weeks. So it made me very, very restless to be involved in carp fishing in some way greater than I was at that time. I was with Ellis Brazier recently and he said, "You added some magic to this area, Tim." I said, "No, Ellis, it was always here, you just didn't recognise it because you live here."
Tuesday, September the 1st. Once the summer starts to go, it just goes. It's the start of the season, really 2.5 months gone. 2:30 AM in the morning and the odd car still sounding up in the village and on the distant road. Otherwise, it's just the sound of the wind in the trees above me and the chatter of owls, which are very active tonight. Grab them. Oh, go away. So the big hit of bait worked. Sadly for the wrong species. The total lack of activity and shows, anything out there, kind of can't help but feel that even the bream feeding out there has got to be a good thing. Don't really know whether to put any more in or not. I just feel like loading it up with a load more might just encourage a load more bream tonight. I don't know, that is 2 within, what time is it? Within about 4 hours of putting it out. Not sure, whack the marker out I suppose and give it a top up before dark. I'll get this sorted first, get this back out quickly and then have a think. That's the one. Lovely. Literally been back in 2 minutes. Just wound my marker float in and yeah, first one on the end. That's what it is, isn't it? At least there's something going on out there. If you go. Well, we got one, only a little one, pretty little one, common. Might scrape £10 if he's lucky, maybe 12, but he's a carp and he's a mangrove carp, so I'm happy.